In the cost world, the purchase decisions are based on savings. For example, there is a machine which is twice as fast as your current one, and it cost 10 lakhs to purchase it. The way this argument is built goes like this. I first find out the number of minutes that this machine saves on one component. Multiply those minutes saved per component into the number of components I make. Then I take this and see how many components I make over a period of time. After I have done this calculation of saving, I calculate the return on investments. And this figure of return on investment is compared against a standard. If this ROI value is equal to or more than the ROI standard, the decision is to go ahead. However, let me pose this question to you. Do you think these savings will materialize? Will this investment actually lead to all the savings as promised by the calculations? In cost world, we take many such decisions based on this line of thinking or these steps of cost calculation. However, there can be two aspects of this. One is the equipment we are considering to buy is a non-bottleneck equipment. And if it is a non-bottleneck equipment, that means it will not impact the throughput of the company. It can be taken for granted that the savings will not materialize, because as it is, this equipment had enough capacity with itself. Yes, in the name of efficiency, we got much better machine. It's twice faster. So in the same time, it will make double the number of components. Or to make one component, it will take half the time. Half the time would mean half the expenses, because we know how much of money we spend per unit time. So 1 hour we know how much it cost us. So all that saving that I do in producing that component, the time saving I do in producing that component gets multiplied by the machine hour rate or the per hour money that we spend in running the company. This multiplied by the number of components I will make will give me the total savings I will make. And if this component is made over a period of time, that means over a month, I can come to conclusion how much of money I will save if I bring in this machine. This is the cost world thinking. In the throughput world thinking, we argue that if this machine is brought in, does it impact my throughput or not? In my productivity measure, will my productivity go up or not? That means, will the throughput go up? I know the operating expense will go up, but if the throughput doesn't go up in accordance or in relative measure to operating expense, I know my productivity is going down. Let us say we have justified a lot of cost savings and we get this machine. What do you think is going to be the impact of this investment on the inventory in the system and the impact of this investment on the throughput part? Most likely the inventory will go up, because to save more of cost, you need to save more time. And if you want to save more time, you need to make more components. If you need to make more components, you will avoid doing setup change. In other words, you will stop doing changeovers. That means the batch size will go up. And whenever the batch size goes up, the WIP goes up. And if this is the behavior of WIP, that means it is going up, it is very likely that your throughput will be compromised. Many a times it can happen to keep this machine working. That means to keep saving cost on this machine, we will produce quantities that we cannot sell. And in case the raw material required to make one component is common with raw material required to make second component, it's quite likely that the raw material gets used for a longer run of component A. So we'll end up producing more number of component A. The surplus amount cannot be sold. On the other hand, we'll end up producing less of component B for which we have an order. So this will also land up impacting the throughput. So now a cost saving decision has led to increase in WIP, sometimes loss of throughput. Okay, there is an assurance that we will end up saving some money. However, that's also in doubt. So cost saving has given us a result which is 180-degree opposite to what we wanted to achieve. The savings did not materialize, the inventory went up, and the throughput got jeopardized. Let's look at situation number 2, where this equipment is a bottleneck. So if this equipment is a bottleneck, everything is okay. Cost savings may not materialize still, but throughput will surely go up. And if you are making a decision based on cost savings and the throughput goes up, you could have said my profit will go up by X%, but in fact it will go up by 3x. If you are working from the point of view that cost saving is equal to what I will add to increase in profit, then again it will be wrong, because the amount of throughput increased will be much more than the cost that has gone up. So the profit will naturally not be in linear correlation to savings. However, in the throughput world, our focus is to constantly increase throughput. Let's consider a situation where you are making an investment, but this time the equipment that you are buying is only 10% faster. If the equipment is 10% faster in the cost world, will you be able to justify its purchase? Unlikely, because the cost savings are not good enough. If the equipment that we have justified by our cost accounting, or in the cost world, we have justified the purchasing of equipment based on cost savings, you could be unlucky. That means that the equipment that you have bought or justified may not lead to required savings. It can increase WIP and jeopardize throughput. This is the condition, or this is how most of the equipment investment is justified. In the throughput world, we are first trying to focus on increase in throughput. Let's take another case. The equipment that we are trying to justify is actually a bottleneck equipment. Number two, it's only 10% faster than the current equipment. I follow the same way of calculating. That is, the amount of time this equipment will save me, the total minutes I will save, multiplied by the rate per minute. This is the total saving I will make for the period. However, if the investment is 10 lakhs and it does not come to meeting my ROI standards, this equipment cannot be bought. Now, this means that we will keep buying equipments which are much faster, much modern than the old one. We have overlooked one important factor in the second option. If this equipment is a bottleneck equipment, it could lead to totally different results. Even a 10% increase in the rate of output will dramatically impact the profit of the company. So in throughput world, our decisions are, will this investment increase my throughput? And we know that yes, this will impact the rate of output by 10%. So at this 10%, the throughput goes up by 10%. If my cost goes up by less than 10%, the equipment is justified, because finally it is going to impact my profit. So rate of change of throughput divided by the change in operating expense, if this is more than 1, this equipment investment is justified. It may not be modern, but if it is even increasing the output or the throughput of the company by 10%, this equipment justifies itself. However, for the other equipment to justify itself, the rate of output had to be substantially high. And after getting such a high performing equipment, we landed up actually losing throughput, and operating expense went up and the inventory went up. The measurements of throughput and the measurements of cost world very often are 180 degrees apart. So in throughput, we only put our money in a place where the throughput is impacted, nowhere else. If you keep doing this, the ROI is much faster, much better. And in case you have made an investment and your throughput has not gone up, it's most likely that you have made an investment in a place which actually is efficiency driven and not throughput driven. Or you have made an investment based on cost calculations, not based on throughput calculations. The three measures of throughput, inventory and operating expense, they are simple but can be easily used to make all the operations decisions and in the correct manner. It's quite unlikely that decisions based on these three will lead to an erroneous result. If the calculations have been done correct, you will see the profit of the company go up. Till now, we have been dealing with financial measurements. These financial measurements tell us how the company has performed in the past. Some of them even tell us what to do so that we can make more money with the available demand. However, by scoring very high on these measurements, we are yet not very confident whether we can keep making money in the future.